Welcome to the Republican Professor. I'm my own host, Dr. Lucas J. Mather, and it is a wonderful A Republican Professor podcast day. It's cloudy. It's been raining for days here in SoCal, but we're going to continue with Harry Jaffa in his Aristotle piece published just the year before he wrote the famous line for Barry Goldwater, presidential candidate Republican, in 1964. And what was that line? Extremism in defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation in pursuit of justice is no virtue. That's Aristotelean language. Well, it's echoing Aristotle, and I'm using the word echo from a piece that Richard B. Hayes wrote in 1989 called Echoes and Allusions to Scriptures in the Letters of Paul, something like that. I think it was Yale University Press. Check that out if you want to know what an echo is, intertextuality, that whole deal. Harry Jaffa was a Republican. Obviously, he was a Goldwater guy, and he wrote this piece on Aristotle that was published by Rand McNally, edited by Leonard Strauss, oftentimes goes by Leo Strauss, and Joseph Cropsey. We're going to do a fair use, make a transformative reading of this material. I'm on page 68 of the 1963 Rand McNally piece. That's where we left off. To understand the definition of the polis, we must then grasp with utmost firmness the meaning and the implications of the proposition that every action aims at or intends some good. That was the very last sentence we read last time. This proposition applies in Aristotle's whole doctrine, or perhaps we should say doctrine of the whole, to all motion in the universe. But we will consider it only as it refers to voluntary human action. Every human agent acts voluntarily only as he intends something that, insofar as it is a motive for him to act, appears to him to be something good. A hungry man eats because relieving his hunger seems to him to be good. The man who would eat when he is hungry must work that he may have food. Work that may itself not otherwise be desired is nonetheless motivated by a seeming good, namely food. The student studies that he may learn, and learns that he may know. His end is knowledge, which may be desired for its own sake or for the sake of some work which it will enable him to do. This work may be desired for its own sake or for its consequences, for example, money or food, or for both. The thief may steal even as the honest man works, that he may eat. Stealing may be evil, as honest work is good, but the good for the sake of which the one steals and the other works may nonetheless be the same, namely, eating. In short, all human action originates in desire for something which moves to action by its appearance of desirability or goodness. Desire implies a sense of deficiency in the agent. That which is desired appears to the agent as capable of overcoming the sense of deficiency. As such, it appears to him as good and becomes thereby the motive for voluntary action. We're now on the bottom of page 68 in History of Political Philosophy, edited by Leo Strauss and Joseph Cropsey, the selection on Aristotle by Harry Jaffa, because he was Hispanic. JK, Harry Jaffa. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. I'm muting myself. I got to drink my coffee before it gets cold. The question arises, however, as to what is the relationship among the many things that are desired as good. The answer given in the first book of the Nicomachean Ethics, with an elaborateness and subtlety which we cannot begin to reproduce, runs somewhat as follows. There are three kinds of ends. First, those which are purely instrumental, which are desired only for their consequences and never for themselves. Money is the most conspicuous example, medicinal drugs is another. Second, there are those good things which would be desired even if they had no further consequences, but in fact are desired as well because they contribute to the acquisition of other goods. Seeing and hearing are examples of faculties whose activities we delight in for themselves, but, and don't get too excited because there's only one T, but which are also means to nearly all the other good things in life, as indeed is health altogether. Honor, pleasure, reason, and every virtue are also things which we would choose, and do choose, for their own sakes, but which are also chosen for their further consequences or advantages. The final class of good is that which is chosen only for its own sake and never for the sake of anything else. Of these three classes, it is clear that the merely instrumental, as such, are less valuable than those which are final, meaning thereby the goods which are or can be chosen for their own sakes. And the more final an object of choice is, in comparison with one which is either entirely or partly instrumental, the more inherently valuable it is. Another sip of coffee because it's getting cold. Why, thank you. Yeah, this scarf that I have, this olive drab scarf, is pure wool. It's 100%. Where did I get it? It's issued by the military, but that's not where I got it. I got it at the Army Navy store in Orange, California, the Orange Circle. That's right. Orange is a city in California. In which county? You guessed it, Orange County. That's right. And a fun fact about the Army Navy store in Orange is it's the only Army Navy store I'm aware of in California that still sells guns. Just like they did back in the 1970s, 1960s and 70s. How old school is that? I love it. It's like being transported back to Falling Down, which was, you know, I guess it's an okay movie, but that's about LA, and it's grimy and gross and disgusting. Orange County is a better place in general, although there's some nasty places in Orange County, but in general. Okay. Let's continue, guys. Intrinsic. We're on page 69 in the middle. Intrinsic to the distinction between instrumental and final ends, and vital to its comprehension, is the distinction between ends which are activities and ends which are products. A chair is an end apart from the activity of carpentering which produced it. Singing is both an activity for making music and music itself. In such cases as the carpentering, Aristotle says, it is the nature of the products to be better than the activity. The skill of the carpenter precedes in time the chair, which is produced by that skill. But the chair and other products of carpentering are desired before carpentering is desired, and the development of the skill of carpentering, insofar as it is a result of deliberate voluntary action, is a consequence of the desire for its products. It is the utility of such products as chairs which is the final cause of carpentering, even as carpentering is the efficient cause of chairs. Because the chairs stand before carpentering in the order of final causality, they enjoy priority in the order of excellence. Now, there are many actions, arts, and sciences, and their ends are also many. Sometimes these ends appear unrelated, but sometimes they are evidently related to each other by their relation to a common end. Bridle making and other arts of equipping horses fall under the art of riding, but riding falls under the military art or strategy. The end of strategy is producing films like Braveheart, directed by Mel Gibson. And it is in the excellence of this end which is the final cause of the excellence of strategy and of the lesser excellences of the lesser arts, which has directly or indirectly called into existence and which serve it. I inserted that part about Braveheart myself, which, if you have any common sense, you would know, because Braveheart came out in 1995 and this was published in 1963. Just saying. What did he say instead of the Braveheart? I was so enjoying throwing Braveheart in there that because I was thinking about horses and military strategy. The end of strategy is victory in war. And it is the excellence of this end which is the final cause of the excellence of strategy and of the lesser excellences of the lesser arts, which it has directly or indirectly called into existence and which serve it. The same is true of health in relation to medicine, and of, page 70 at the top, medicine in relation to the subordinate arts which serve it. And so with buildings in relation to architecture, in relation to, for example, bricklaying and interior decorating. Now, we see that victory, health, and building are final in relation to the arts that serve them, and all are worthy of choice for their own sake. Victory for the evils of defeat it averts, and for the honor it achieves. Health for the evils of disease which it averts, and for the healthy activity it engenders. Building for the discomforts they avert, and for comforts they provide. But victory is valuable not only for the foregoing reasons, but far more because of the activities having nothing to do with war, which can be pursued only in peace and freedom. The man would be mad who would go to war for the sake of the honor of victory if peace and freedom were attainable without war. Peace and freedom are ends more final than victory. The intrinsic value of victory derives from peace and freedom, no less than the value of weapons derives from the value of victory. And so the question arises, what is the cause of the value of peace and freedom? Or, To put the question in its most comprehensive form, as Aristotle does, is there not something always desirable for its own sake and never for the sake of something else? If there is, then this must be the thing, or if there be more than one such, these must be the things for the sake of which everything else is done. We're in the middle of page 70.
Is he saying he likes peace and freedom in the 60s? What is he, a hippie or something?
No, he's not a hippie. He voted for Goldwater, dude. He wrote speeches for Goldwater. 1964. All right. Wow. Now, Aristotle maintains that there is one such thing which stands in the same relation to all the activities of human life as the target stands in relation to the activity of the archer. Yeah, Second Amendment. Yeah, woohoo! Aristotle loved the Second Amendment. It is the mark toward which everything we do is ultimately directed, and only as we can see that mark, or as we are directed by those who do see it, can our lives be said to have direction. The ground of Aristotle's opinion is twofold. First, if there were no absolutely final cause of human action, then everything would be desired for the sake of something else, and there would be no term or end of human desire. I got a cough. Hold on a second. I'm going to mute it. Yes, Zoom. I unmuted myself. Thank you. These daggum robots. Where was I? Damn it. Excuse me. Okay. First, if there were no absolutely final cause of human action, then everything would be desired for the sake of something else, and there would be no term or end of human desire. Every human choice, we recall, initiates a movement to overcome some deficiency in the agent, eating to overcome hunger, learning to overcome ignorance. Is what you're doing right now. It is a movement from incompletion toward completion. By the way, notice it's not towards with an S, it's toward. Just FYI, okay? I don't make the rules, I enforce them. From imperfection toward perfection. But if each deliberate action were nothing but the way to another action, the notion of progress from lesser to greater finality would be pure illusion. And the only actual finality would be an infinite regress. And life would be essentially purposeless and vain. But human action originates in the human soul, the cause of which is nature. Aristotle holds that nature does nothing in vain, and action originating in the soul would be vain if it could not terminate short of infinity. Therefore, there must be a final, attainable end of all human action. This argument, it will be perceived, depends on Aristotle's doctrine of nature. We're on page 71 at the top. But there is another argument as well, namely that universal opinion testifies to the existence of such an end, and common opinion, to the extent that it is uncontradicted and internally consistent, is always authoritative for Aristotle. All people speak of happiness, and all mean by happiness just such a thing as we have specified as a final end. something for the sake of which every good thing can be chosen, including those good things like honor, virtue, and health, which can be chosen for their own sakes, but which is never itself chosen for the sake of anything else. To possess happiness means to lack nothing desirable, to be self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency does not imply a solitary condition, but rather whatever a man needs to be happy. Parents, children, friends, and fellow citizens. Countrymen! To quote that Russian guy in the movie The Saint, which I all of a sudden had in my mind for some reason, if you haven't seen The Saint with Val Kilmer. And Elizabeth, what's her last name? Elizabeth Boot? Elizabeth Sandal. No, Elizabeth Shue, sorry. I knew I was close. Well, happiness, unlike other goods, is not to be enumerated among good things. To be healthy and wealthy and wise is better than to be any one or two of these things, but one cannot add wealth or wisdom to happiness to make happiness better, because happiness implies the presence of all other good things in whatever measure is sufficient to define their excellence. Whatever positive measure of goodness can be ascribed to health or wealth or wisdom derives from its ability to contribute to happiness. We're in the middle of page 71 in Harry Jaffa's selection on Aristotle and the history of political philosophy, Rand McNally, 1963, edited by Leo Strauss. His friends called him Leonard for short, and Joseph Cropsey. Okay, later editions were published by the University of Chicago Press, which I think it's in Illinois. Well, anyway, let's continue. We cannot do more here than allude to the substantive meaning of happiness as developed by Aristotle in the 10 books of the Nicomachean Ethics. The definition given in the first book is that happiness is an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue, and if there are many virtues, in accordance with the best and most complete, in a complete life. Virtuous activity is defined as that activity which perfects the specifically human part of the soul, the rational faculty, in the same sense that musical excellence perfects the faculty of music making in one who has the potentiality to make music, which is not me, FYI. What is crucial in the foregoing understanding of the definition of the polis, to bring it back to the political philosophy, okay? Well, all that was Nicomachean Ethics. Like, he's bringing it back to the polis now, okay? What is crucial in the foregoing for understanding the definition of the polis is that the idea of a complete and self-sufficient community, a community that embraces all other communities but is embraced by none, corresponds exactly to the idea of happiness. So this is an argument by analogy here. There's two things here: happiness, polis, community. Okay. 2 books: Nicomachean Ethics, Politics, in Aristotle. The good life, so the human good that embraces and includes within itself as an element of its own definition all other goods, but is itself included in the definition of no other good. Happiness is the term of all human action and is implicit as the final term of every human action. The polis is the term of all human communities and is the external organized expression of the unity which governs or ought to govern the totality of human actions in all their diversity. And I know all the Democrats just got really excited when they just heard that word diversity. They were so bored they were falling asleep until they heard that D word, and they were like, oh, whoa, oh, I'm excited now. Did he say diversity? Oh, I knew I liked Aristotle for some reason. Page 71 at the bottom. Near the beginning of the Nicomachean Ethics, immediately after affirming that there must be one goal for the whole of human life, even as there must be a mark for the archer. All the Second Amendment people are excited because of the word archer, bearable arms. Aristotle says that of the sciences and faculties, the one that would guide us toward this goal or mark would be the most authoritative and master of all the others. Page 72 at the top. Politics is the supreme discipline. I'm going to say that again. Politics is this supreme discipline, and the language Aristotle uses to describe the relation of politics to all other disciplines corresponds closely to the language used at the beginning of the Politics to describe the relation of the polis to all other forms of community. Politics determines which of the sciences should be studied in the polis, by which of the citizens, and to what degree. Politics alone rules strategy, economics, and rhetoric. That's how they pronounced it back then. We have the tapes. They were found in Pompeii. They were 8-track tapes, so they're kind of old. But yeah, they rolled their R's like that. That's why they call it Latin America, because Latin America influenced how Rome pronounced it, and then Rome influenced how Greece pronounced it. That's how it worked, as far as I understand. I read my history book backwards, though, so just keep that in mind. Pompeii. The 8 tracks were found in Pompeii. All right, let's see here. Let's continue.
Mom, is he kidding? Is he kidding about that? What's an 8-track?
Let's see here. Yeah. Politics alone rules strategy, economics, and rhetoric. For happiness is the end of politics, as victory is of strategy, and wealth of economics. Only the man who understands the requirements of victory can utilize, let us say, a cavalry maneuver, even if he requires a cavalry officer to execute it. And only the one who understands the requirement of happiness can utilize victory, even if he requires a general to secure it. The ultimate end of human life, the good for man, happiness, as Aristotle maintains, is one and the same, whether we consider one man or a polis. But to attain or preserve it for a polis or a nation seems greater or more complete than for one man. The reason why is made clear at the end of the Nicomachean Ethics, when the meaning of happiness has been fully elaborated and the transition to the politics is indicated. The politics referring to his book, the title of his book. The conditions of happiness are seldom, if ever, within the ability of one man to control. Only good men can be happy, although they may not be. But good laws make good men, and good government makes good laws. All right, I think we're going to stop there for today. We have read through the middle of page 68. Well, actually, most of page 68. How about the middle of page 68? Page 69, 70, 71, and we're in the middle of page 72. Thanks for joining me on A Republican Professor podcast. I've been your host, Dr. Lucas J. Mather. Today is Tuesday, 18 November 2025, years after Jesus. We'll see you next time. Take care.